the Fly Girls and Saturday Night Live and that whole thing was in Living Color.
Yeah,
Living...
that was when he played Fireman Bill, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Are we live anywhere?
You guys are good to go.
Everywhere. Okay, Dave, this is where you do your stupid.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Team Powerhouse show, live with you every Tuesday. Eric Vasquez back here on your far right. David Lamel here, and a very special guest we've had in the show before, the infamous, the knowledgeable Mr. Jesse Mcdonald, our insurance guru for all health insurance information. The company's Modern Insurance. You need to know about your health insurance, your life insurance, health insurance, mind and body, because everybody needs it or should have it or may need to know more about how to get it. Yes. How about that? Indeed. So, Jesse, thank you for coming back on the show with us again.
Great to be back.
We always learn so much in this whole podcast thing, right? Every week we do these podcasts, and together we are learning and growing and learning and hoping that you guys out there who are watching are getting benefits from watching the show every week. We love having you. So let's talk about insurance.
All right. It's exciting.
We kind of had you a few weeks ago.
Yep.
We got into some questions. We didn't get to finish. We've got more questions to ask you. If anybody else out there has any questions while you're watching, please feel free to let us know. The best places to ask those questions are really going to be on Facebook and Instagram. Those are the easiest way to answer. So please, TikTok, forgive. If you're watching on TikTok, we want you to be a part of it. It's just a little harder for me to see. As a matter of fact, we should probably move that camera.
I'm watching.
Can you watch TikTok from there too?
Yeah.
There you go. All right, TikTok, you can ask as many questions as you want as well. Perfect. All right, so Jesse, right? I mean, got to answer the questions. So Modern Insurance, Jesse Mcdonald, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So protecting yourself against fraudulent insurance health plans. The reason why I'm asking this question is because how many of you out there are getting text messages from insurance companies saying, do you need insurance? Right?
Yeah.
Me too. I get them at least once a week. I'm like, why am I getting these insurance questions? From what we learned from you last time was you can't just buy insurance whenever you want to. You got to watch out for that rabbit hole and who the person is sending this text message to you, how they got your information, what did you Google, what did you talk about near your phone that they heard, right? So let's talk about that.
So let's talk about that. This is going to be a bit of a long answer, but it's important.
That's okay. Long answers are important.
So if you're being solicited for health insurance, it is highly likely it's not health insurance. If you live in Connecticut and you don't get health insurance from your employer, there's only 3 things that are approved by the state of Connecticut for you to buy on your own that constitute health insurance. There's Husky, which is Medicaid if your income is low enough, or there's private individual coverage, which is only offered by Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield and Connecticut.
Yes.
Just those 2 companies.
Say that one more time. I got interrupted. Yeah. Sorry.
What did he do?
It was nothing. Yeah. All right, go ahead.
So if you live in Connecticut and you need your own coverage, there's Husky if your income qualifies. That's a public program. The income has to be below a specific threshold, which we can go over if you'd like.
Yes.
Then if you can't qualify for that, your choice is 2 private health insurance companies, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield and Connecticut. If you don't have one of those 3, if you don't have coverage from an employer and you don't have one of those 3 things, it's a very good chance that you don't have health insurance. What these solicitations often are glorified discount plans. They're telling you we have a nationwide doctor network and you can go all over the country. They keep selling the idea of a national doctor network. Okay, great. So the way those plans work is you can go to doctors and hospitals in their network. And let's say you get stuck in the hospital for a week and the hospital Midstate or Yale or wherever you go is in the network. These networks arrange that the costs be lower. So if you're in there and it was a $70,000 bill, these PPO networks will knock that bill down to $45,000. Great. Who's paying the $45,000? You are. There's no insurance underneath a lot of these PPO national plans of people being solicited under. They're only getting you the discounts. There's no insurance underneath it that pays the catastrophic claims. So if you want to make sure that you have your health insurance claims covered and you're on your own and you don't have it from an employer, if it's not one of those 3 things, there's a very good chance what you have isn't what you think it is.
So, Jesse, let me ask you a question based on that.
Talk a little louder, Eric, because you're very soft spoken.
Do the hospitals know this? and
The ho-
participated?
The hospital. So these are actually, Eric, it's a great question. These are legitimate networks. Large companies throughout the country set up their own health insurance plans called self-funded, but they don't want to pay top dollar for the medical bills. So they use these networks to get reductions that the doctors and hospitals and providers agree to. So the networks themselves are not illegal. They're a good thing. They actually drive our costs down. But all of these plans that people have from employers, there's some mechanism where the insurance comes in and pays for things
Right.
the way you think it's going to.
Right.
These predatory programs, they're taking legitimate, they buy the right to have the network be on the plan, but then there's nothing in the plan that pays catastrophic bills.
Right.
It pays a couple doctor visits here and there. It might pay a small accident up to $500. They piecemeal these small little components together and they make it look like it's health insurance, but they never say health insurance. They will say health benefit package, health coverage, health plan. They're very careful to not say health insurance so that they're not outright misadvertising what it is. But there's a lot of these fraudulent plans, and some people have them thinking they have an actual health insurance plan, and then in the middle of the year they have a $20,000 bill and it's not paying anything, and they're like, "Why isn't this paying? I thought I had health insurance." There's nothing in there that actually pays big claims, and they don't count as having had health insurance. So if you realize that it's not a real plan, you can't then just go into the regular market and buy a real plan in the middle of the year.
But doesn't the hospital or facility, whatever it is, recognize that the plan that this person's coming into our
They
or
recognize it
hospital
once they're there and
like,
they try to run
this
it.
is the person who is going to have a substantial bill when we're done with them.
Hospital financing comes as like, there isn't this, they realize what it is and they go to the person like this isn't really insurance. We're going to agree to these fees, but there's nothing that's actually going to pay our fees.
Right.
Oh, wow.
That's a difficult conversation that hospital, finance people come around when the person's stabilized and talk about how you're going to pay for this.
So-
'cause you
Yeah,
don't
I've seen
actually
those
have-
carts.
You don't actually
Yeah,
have
they come
health
around with a
insurance.
nice cart. It's got a computer on it and the whole thing. Yeah.
Right.
You've seen them, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
I've been in the ER a couple of times in the last year or two. Yeah.
Right.
There are and if anyone ever like calls for information on health insurance or they get solicited and then you call one of these numbers back, you get barraged by nonstop phone calls from these predatory programs that oddly enough are not selling what you're in the market for, which is health insurance.
I once reacted into this question. I'm like, because I was like, first of all, who are you? How do you get my information and what is this about? So are you interested? This is a while back. Are you interested in health insurance and getting whatever it was rates? This is before you got involved in our family, by the way. And I remember this is the begin. This has been doing this for years, but now more and more these texts are coming in. They must have found a wide open range of people who either don't have insurance or don't know enough about this being predatory, as you just mentioned. And so I kind of, you clickbait. Yeah, I'm curious. Like,
Sure,
what is this? And then, like you said, they literally, when you realize that it's something, they're hardcore.
Yeah, they're hard selling.
Yes.
Now, unless you have a qualifying life event,
And that's
you can't
that's
buy
when
health insurance.
and that's exactly when you know that that's a red flag. When someone is completely hightailing calling you for anything, whether they're selling something to you, that's a red flag. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's exactly what it is. If you're being hard solicited for health insurance, that's a red flag because most people that are actual health insurance brokers, we're so busy helping our existing clients and dealing with the complexity of it, we don't have time to hard sell.
Right.
Like we're dealing with our clients.
You're not questions. A salesperson. You're more of like an engineer of insurance information.
Well, they don't make cold calls.
Right.
People that are starting out might.
Yeah, that's true.
But even so, if you can't, health insurance is not normally what you're going to cold call on because there's rules as to when you can buy it. So unless someone happens to have one of these qualifying life events, coincidentally, when you called them, if you're getting solicited, it's a red flag right off the bat.
All right. What if you don't have insurance now?
So the way it works,
Sorry.
Yeah, it's difficult if you're listening. You don't have insurance, and what do you do? So the way the individual market works is starting in 2014, the health insurance carriers had to take you regardless of your pre-existing conditions, regardless of your medical history or what's going on with you health-wise. They have to take you, but they don't have to take you when you want to buy it. So back in the early 2000s, late 90s, a couple of the East Coast states like New York, New Hampshire, Vermont, they decided to make insurance companies accept everybody, no matter what. But there was no rule as to when you could buy coverage. So what would happen is people were like, well, I'm fine now.
Right.
Mm.
What
I'm
are we
not going to
insurance
pay this
for?
money.
Right.
So what would happen is people wait till they had something serious happen, then they buy it. So what happened there is the rates explode when it works that way. So in mid 2000s, Massachusetts decides to change things up a little bit where we're going to make insurance companies accept everybody and have this marketplace, but you can't buy it whenever you want to. There's only certain times of the year you can just go in and buy it. Otherwise, you have to play by the rules. You can't just game the system and wait until you're sick or hurt to then buy it. Mm-hmm. So that stabilized things. And then they copied that template from Massachusetts nationally in 2008. And it went into, and it got passed into law in 2010. And it finally got slowly rolled out. Whereas in 2014, insurance companies have to take you, legit health insurance plans have to take you, but you can't buy it when you want unless you have certain circumstances. So if you haven't involuntarily lost another plan in the last 60 days,
If you haven't involuntarily lost
another plan in the last 60 days, or there's certain circumstances that you might have moved from one state, you've moved to Connecticut from somewhere else, or you're moving from Connecticut to another state, those, a move, a birth of a child, getting married, I believe, there's different circumstances that can allow you to jump into the market. Mm-hmm. Income going below certain levels is like a diner that never closes. If your income goes below certain levels, that is an exception to where you actually can jump into the market at any time of the year.
That's very interesting.
What's that threshold?
That's a great question. So for Husky Medicaid, it's not based, and this could be good info for some people listening.
Jumping into my questions over here is good.
With Husky Medicaid, it's all based on the current month income. So the question would ask, let's say you're an individual tax filer, no dependents. Is your current month income below $1,800? If you can attest that it is, you can get Husky, which is a public program. If your income as an individual were to go somewhere as high as $26,300 annualized by a thing they call modified adjusted gross income, that would be a ticket in. But you'd have to be able to test that your income is no higher than $26,300 adjusted gross. So that those that can say that have a way in.
All year long.
All year long in our state of Connecticut.
Okay.
Different states have different things
And
that are similar.
And if they have kids, obviously.
Then the threshold goes up. If you're a married couple, the threshold goes as high as $35,700. Mm-hmm. If you give me a family size, I have a little chart here I can look up.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
No, just off the cuff.
That might be something to
35.7 would be a couple, or a parent with one child only.
Can you send that to Thane, that chart, and maybe Thane can throw that up on the screen? If that's okay to ask that question.
Yeah. Sure.
Or is that kind of a private-ish kind of question?
No,
does it have your contact information on it?
It does not.
That'd be great if it
this
did.
is just something that's through the Connecticut marketplace that should be attainable for anybody. Okay. How do I get this to Thane?
Yep. And you're gonna
text it to Thane.
You could email or text it to him. Bingo, bango. He's gonna text to Thane.
Thane number.
So you mentioned about Husky. And I know with a certain kind of
303-873-8482.
All right, Daisy, don't get upset when the girls start calling him now because of all the phone number out there. Now these girls are going to start calling him. It's not our fault. This is,
So on the chart that I just texted to Thane, the program that allows you any time of the year at the highest possible income is a thing called Covered Connecticut. So I don't know how easy that's going to be is to read, but it's where it says Covered Connecticut. So 26,300 individual, 35.7 for a household of 2. Household of 3, you can go up to 45,180. Household of 4, 54,600. So there's different thresholds, and that's not the money you're bringing in. And you want to check with your accountant on anything I say on income, but it's what they call modified adjusted gross income, which for the majority of people ends up being the same number as the adjusted gross income. Line 11 on your 1040.
These are all accounting questions. If you have any great questions about accounting, I've got a great accountant for you. You're there. But we're talking about insurance.
How come he hasn't been on the podcast yet?
That's part of the plan. That's a great. It's a he. His name is Mike Fino. He's a great guy who's an SKP accountant. He's very knowledgeable. I would love to get him on the show, and it will happen. It's just a matter of the tax season, of course.
Oh, that's right.
You
This
know,
is my
and-
slow period. This is their heavy
Right?
period.
He's bananas right now.
Yeah, I get it.
He's the guy that sends you the messages like, if you don't get in here by XYZ, I'm always on that extension thing. Anyway, with that being said, going back to you and the insurance.
So going back to that fraud thing, everybody,
Yes.
just if you don't have Connecticut, you don't have Anthem, or you don't have Husky, and you're buying your own, take a look at what you have. Make sure.
Take a look at what they're offering you, not have, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, right. If you have something that isn't health insurance, you don't have a lot of options right now unless the income were to go below a certain threshold.
Now, with that being said, what about students who graduate from college?
Sure. So students that graduate from college, assuming that they have their parents' plan through, let's say, their parents' job or their parents' individual plan, they can stay on the plan until age 26 if they need to. If they have their own plan through their college or university, those plans typically don't end right when they graduate. They usually end at the end of July. Some of the school plans might end mid-August, and that will create a qualifying event to jump into an individual plan. So you can get individual plan on certain life circumstances, and it's usually the loss of some other coverage that's beyond your control. It's just going to end, and those end when you graduate. So that's a way to get into the individual market.
So just to reiterate what you're saying, when it comes to a guy or a girl or a student who graduates college,
Yep.
Who now has the ability or doesn't have insurance because, let's say, for example, they weren't on their parents' plan because they put them on the college to
Yep.
once. Now they don't have insurance with the parents' plan, right?
Yep.
Can the parents then adapt them back?
Yes. So if the parent has an individual plan, they can be added to the parent's individual plan. If the parent has a plan from their employer, they can be added to the employer plan, usually within 30 days. For an employer plan, it's usually you need to get in touch with that employer within 30 days of it happening. In the individual market, it's 60 days. So the key is you have a window in. Don't wait around months and months later and decide to do something.
And I think that happens a lot because, kids are graduating college, or they're not kids anymore, they're adults, right? So they're graduating college, they're focusing on getting a job, getting established, blah, 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 blah.
They're not thinking about health insurance.
They're not thinking about it. And then all of a sudden they didn't get a job yet, right? It's been a few months, God forbid.
Right.
And now what happens? They can't get back on the mom and dad's plan, I guess,
but often
it's sticky.
The parents in our general age group,
we're thinking about
they're pretty good and they're doing it all.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's true. I mean, obviously, because
No
we think
offense,
about
kids.
these things because, right. But I mean, there are kids who out there who, don't have that great maybe guidance or, responsible parents out there. So now what happens to them? So they haven't got a job yet.
So they're not having the job yet. Could be so. Let's say they let
because the income level.
Yeah, so
and that could slide them into Husky.
It could
maybe
slide them into Husky, or that next level up is what we call covered Connecticut, where you're not Husky, but you get Connecticut or Anthem Blue Cross at no cost if the income hits that next threshold.
That's good to know, actually, because again, and that could actually help out a parent too, hypothetically. Some aspects of they're not adding people. Well, let's go back into this. One of the questions we have down here is, if, and I'm going to come back to that, does it matter on the rate based on how many members in the family on the insurance plan?
Yes. So family rates depend on the market you're in. So in the individual market, or what we call the fully insured small group market, companies up to 50. Most companies that are up to 50, or if you're an individual, every one person in the family is priced on their age. So father age 57, mother age 53, 14-year-old child, 18-year-old child. Each one person is a separate rate and it all comes put together in one rate.
Interesting.
In the large group market, 50 and up, and some small companies are able to piggyback into this. It's a family rate once it's 3 or more on the plan. Whether it's 3, whether it's 6 people, it just won't matter. There's a family rate. And then when you get down to 2, it depends on whether it's a parent and child or whether it's whether it's 2 spouses and no kids.
Okay, I'm going to ask you another question, and Eric's had a question coming up too. But on the one with the kids, so you mentioned 3, 4. What if it's a family member? Let's say you adopted a child from another member of the family, or you took in a child. How does that work?
Adoption or birth of a child are going to give an automatic entry as long as you do it within a reasonable amount of time, usually 30 days if it's your employer's plan and 60 in the individual market. Those are qualifying events for the child to come on that health insurance.
And what if, let's say it was, God forbid, a family member's passed on and you've now taken a child into your family because they don't have, parents, if you will, or something like that. God
It's
forbid.
going to land in the same scenario, though. It's going to be adoption or any adoption and birth of a child are going to be treated the same way.
Okay, that's good. That's good stuff because
Yeah.
things, God forbid, happen.
Does that fall under adoption? Because I think the scenario that Dave was playing out, it's, God forbid, my sibling passes, and my nephew or my niece, I now am responsible for taking care of.
Yeah.
Well, the way that might have to play out
right.
is
The wording.
right.
Right.
You'd think I would run into that situation more often than I have, but what will happen is the death of the parent is going to cause. That's going to cause the child to lose that plan, which will then create the qualifying event to either enter in as just themselves in the market, and then that family member would help guide them. If that family member is going to be able to now take over as the guardian and they become a tax dependent, a lot of this has to do with being a tax dependent.
Right.
So if they're taking over tax dependency, or the child's going to be their tax dependent, they're going to be able to jump into their own plan.
Okay. So there is ways for people, kids, families, that kind of stuff, in unprecedented circumstances to get insured.
But if they're unsure, they would just call Jesse. That's all.
Yeah, and I help people with these sort of situations.
In lots of situations. Let's just make sure we have, again, your phone number out there on the screen if it's not already. Jesse, what is your cell phone or the number?
Best number is the office.
Yes.
It's 203.
Yes.
882.
Yes.
9805.
9805. My hand is.
And email's fine. A simple one is just my business name, moderninsurance@gmail.com.
So that's 203-882-9905.
9805.
I can't read my own handwriting. 9805. I'm writing the numbers down, and my hands writing mentally and physically. Two things happening over here. Must be a little exhaustion happening over here. All right. So Jesse McDonald, Modern Insurance, 203-882-9805.
You got it.
And your email is Jesse.
Well, it's the best one to make sure you get to me. Just to keep it simple, it's just moderninsurance@gmail.com.
Moderninsurance@gmail.com.
That'll
Awesome
always
stuff.
work.
All right. So how does income tie into buying your own insurance?
Sure. So in the individual health insurance market, and it's also a lot like this in the small group market as far as its cost, in the individual and in the small group market, you're priced at what your age is. Every 1 year you get older, it gets expensive.
It should be less expensive.
Right. But the premiums themselves have gotten really high. They're really, really high.
They are.
There's no way around it. But what affects the cost is under the Affordable Care Act, you can project what you think this year's income is going to be, and the federal government gives you what are called advanced premium tax credits. They're giving you a tax credit now for a year that hasn't even concluded yet.
So what if you project your income to be much less than it really is?
It has implications. So
As implications, means
yes,
penalties.
owing money, but it's not so much a penalty. Think of it this way. I'm not going to say my age on that.
25.
Let's just say I'm not young. And let's say my premium, I want a silver plan, and that premium is $1,300 because that's around what it is at my age in New Haven County. And let's say I want to say the income is $100,000. The federal government will probably kick in about $500 towards the cost of that plan. So that'll knock the rate down by $500. So let's say if my rate was normally $1,300, now it goes down to $800.
That's pretty good.
And I'm taking guesses about costs right now.
Right.
I can look up an example just to give you some actual numbers.
But that's good to know that there is a kick in, if you will. Because 1,300 to 800 sounds much better.
Yeah.
If someone's income's around $40,000, then a plan might only cost $150 or $200 a month. But you know that the real cost is $1,300. So the more you make, the more the government wants those credits back at tax time. No penalty, no interest. It's just you'll get charged what your rate should have been all along by where your income comes out. So
but the beauty about that is, and I say that with the taxes, is if you owe money during your taxes and you don't have the money to pay, you can go on a payment plan, right?
yes,
So you have the insurance that you need.
yes,
You have good insurance, and later on, you go on a payment plan with your taxes that you owe money.
that's a good point, and it can be very highly customized. I have clients that think they're going to be taken away in a white van, never to be heard from again if they're off like by $1,000 on their income. They're really worried about it, so they overestimate how much
Right.
they pick a number they know they'll never cross,
Right.
and then they actually get more back at tax time because let's say they said 150,000, but they came out 110,000.
Right.
They overpaid the health insurance all that time.
So they get the money back at
Get
tax
the money
season.
back as a tax credit against their return, which might result in a refund or it's going to offset other liabilities.
You know, I don't know. On one hand, I'm going to not talk about taxes, but you know, doing that whole pay in advance thing, it never seems to come back to you.
In this case, it will, but you've not gotten any interest on your money.
Right.
So I would say don't go too far with it. And then some people, they have a cash crunch problem right now.
Right.
They can't afford more than $800 a month for their family, but we know it probably should be $1,100.
Right.
They might decide they're going to underestimate the income to make the rate $800, but they know that at tax time, that $300 difference times 8, 9, 10, 12 months
Right.
is going to come back at tax time,
$3,600.
and they're going to owe $3,600 at tax time, but there's no interest or penalty.
Right.
It's just, it all reconciles itself as to what it should have been.
Which, and by the way, not that you're trying to beat the system, but try to at least ride the system out, in my opinion, to help you out during times that are more difficult. If you, again, during tax season, as long as you make arrangements to make some kind of payments, it's easier to do a payment plan over a handful of years to pay that money back than to be without good insurance, especially for individuals and families. And I
Yes.
think we just found a little loophole here.
It's not so much it's a loophole, is you can project what you think your income is going to be.
Right.
Okay. It has to be within reason. Like,
Sure.
you know, if you made 200,000 adjusted gross and now you're going to say it's 30,000, that doesn't always fly because
Right.
it's not that you can't say it. You can say it if you want to.
Right.
But the system has
Gonna kick back,
triggers with
right.
government databases, so they're going to
Formula is
it's going
going
to
to
see that your 2023 tax return was 200,000,
right.
and you're saying 25 is 30,000.
Right.
They're going to ask you to prove it.
There might be, it
And
might be a little red
and they
flag.
give you like 90 days to prove it, and if you can't prove it, they're going to strip some of your system.
Well, if you're a real estate agent, you could definitely see that happening from 200 to 30 in the last 2 years. I mean,
Right, and that brings me to a point that is something we were talking about before.
Yes.
Is you may have listeners that are going through a dry spell, and
right.
and that's where Husky is potentially an avenue people can take advantage of. If you just have no sales this month,
Right.
and you don't have income coming in,
Right. Or for the last year and you know things are not great in the situation moving forward.
if your current month income, even if you were going to have some big sales later in the year, if your current month income drops below that 1,800 for an individual, or if it's around 2,400 for a married
Right.
couple, if you just are going through a period where there's just no money coming in, Husky is an avenue you can take advantage of, and then when your income goes up, you can then get bumped to the private plan later. So just don't feel too proud. It's better to have that than not be covered.
Absolutely.
Is it based only on that month?
It is based just on
So
that month.
if somebody has a closing in January, let's say in the
Yep.
real estate, in
Yep.
a realtor example, so they have a closing in January and they get paid, let's say $6,000, right?
Yep.
Okay. Is it that $6,000 stretched over that time? Let's say it's April, and
No.
they're in a lean month, and that situation.
What they'd be
rises?
able to do is they might have a $6,000 closing in January, and then maybe February things started to dry up a bit, and now
That
March
happened.
nothing's happening. in
And this
March.
and
There's
this
just
is what's
nothing.
happening. This is really what's happening.
Then that you can go into the marketplace application. And it's going to say, is your current month income greater than 1,800? If you say no to that, they're going to take your word for it, and that would create a Husky eligibility retroactive to that same month. But at the end, there's a government attestation that you're saying you agree to let the marketplace know if your income changes. So what would happen is you would then, once you start going over 1,800 again, you're supposed to let them know, and then you get bumped to the next level, which is you're then judged annually for the private insurances. So there's two different
Can
measurements.
I just ask you a question? And I don't want to try to say anything that's fraudulent, hypothetically speaking. I'm just asking because I'm sure out there people are asking this question. So what if people did not all of a sudden disclose at another closing in May? There was another 6,000, right? Because it went from January, and that money
Yep.
doesn't last very long. That's the part that people don't realize. When you're in sales, and you can be selling
Right.
anything, you have a good month, and then you have a couple of months that are not great, right? So then they go, okay, I didn't disclose now, not because I'm being, whatever, but because end of the year, if you take up all the money that was made, divided by 12, blah blah blah,
Sure.
you know what I mean?
Right. Listen, you're making good points. Once the current month income goes over the threshold, you're supposed to go in and change it, which would then cause you to get bumped from Husky into the next level.
Right.
And it depends. Some people want to be in Husky. Some people don't want to be in Husky.
Right.
So there's different preferences.
True.
Husky has zero cost, zero copay, zero deductible. All of our Connecticut hospitals take it, but maybe not quite as many providers participate as private insurance.
True.
And there's reputation that it takes longer to get the services that you need when you have Husky versus a private plan. That's the perspective
Right.
that I hear from my clients. I've never been on Husky. I can't be sure that that's the case.
Or does my doctor accept it?
Right. Whereas private insurance has higher copays, higher deductibles, and you're going to pay some monthly premium to have it. But the reputation is the doctors get paid a little bit better, and you're going to get in there quicker, and the services are going to happen sooner.
So does health insurance, like if somebody files unemployment, let's say, with that unemployment that they're filing with the state,
Yep.
do they partner in a health insurance with that? Because obviously if you're unemployed, then you don't have health insurance.
Right. What it is the unemployment, the gross unemployment counts as income.
It says so. Okay.
So if you lose your job, you're going to be offered COBRA whenever that plan ends, either the end of that calendar month that you got terminated, or sometimes when someone has health insurance for an employer, it ends the day the employment ends. That's annoying when they do that because it's a little harder to deal with the timing of an individual plan. But normally the plan goes to the end of the month. You then have 60 days to decide whether you want to take COBRA. And in the meantime, now that you've gone into that next month from the month that you got terminated, income has changed. Now your income is, if there's unemployment, you have to count it. If there's no unemployment, then you don't have to count that. But that is going to go into the income equation. Oftentimes, unemployment kicks people out of the Husky range, but not out of the range where they can get pretty low rates with the tax credits.
If you want to learn, if you need insurance, if you don't have insurance, if you know somebody who doesn't have insurance, you know somebody who has insurance that needs to start looking and talking and shopping and educating themselves on insurance, Jesse McDonald is your go-to guy. He's a great guy. Obviously been listening to for the last 30 minutes about a lot of little things. There's so many questions to ask because it's such a deep conversation of information. And I'm sure out there are many more people who have many more questions. And sometimes those questions, they're a little sensitive and personal. You're embarrassed to ask out loud because it's very like to say you don't doing well or things are bad or are having rough times. Insurance is one of those things that people all need to know about and learn about and have. Right. And it's one of those things that out there while you're watching, you're thinking about these things. You want to reach out to Jesse. You want to ask these questions of him. 203.
And my services don't have I don't have a cost.
No cost to pick the phone and talk to you. No hourly or minute fee.
No fees. And if you get health insurance through me, the rate's no different than if you didn't use me. And the carrier gives us a fee if you go through us, but your rate's no different. And and health insurance brokers don't charge the consumer a fee.
Great guy. 203-882-9805.
Got it right.
I'm just making sure that everybody knows because, what you know and what you learn and what you have, we're always learning. And that's the most important thing. Remember, you're learning always. And the more you learn, the more education you have. And by the way, these things you're talking about are just Connecticut specific, right? But that doesn't mean that it's not similar in other states.
It's much of it's going to be very, very similar because there's certain rules in the Affordable Care Act that every state's has to follow. And if anyone needs help finding someone in a state where they have a relative, I'm connected to this industry. I can find good brokers in other states. If that
was my follow-up. If you are living in New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, wherever it is, California, I don't know, talk to Jesse. Maybe he's got a contact for you.
I have contacts in most states. There are some states I don't. I don't think I have a Montana, Idaho contact, or certain like prairie states where the population is fairly low, where I don't get a lot of requests.
Great guy, super knowledgeable, great guy to be involved with in your insurance, in your life, in your family. Thank you so much, Jesse, for being here today. We're gonna have to have you back on again. I could have talked for another 30 minutes in questions over here. It's
only
super-
30 minutes. I thought we
I
had an
know.
hour.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it's something that when you talk and you listen and you learn, and one question develops into another thing because it's like, there's so many connections, all these
Yes.
questions over here. We could just have a conversation about the whole Husky plan and how insurance is involved now with kids and families. Like, these are things that I think we all need to learn about, and not to be fearful of, and not to be worried about what kind of insurance you have, as long as you do have insurance, because not having insurance is the problem.
So
Yes.
as I understand it, the older you are, the higher it's going to cost you.
Yeah, and it's every 1 year makes a difference little by little. So someone in their 50s might pay 13, 14, 1500 for a plan that someone that is in their 20s would pay 500 or 600.
Wow.
If you're going to pay the full premiums
Individually.
without the tax credits.
Right. But if you have a family plan, it's a little
Yeah, see,
different.
I think it should be like an insurance policy, like insurance, like on your car or whatever, or your house. The more claims
They're
you
not
make,
allowed
or the
to do
more
it.
visits you
That's
make.
the way it
you
used
know?
to work. But
Really?
they're not
Because
allowed.
I'm like a twice a year guy,
I know.
and they're physicals. That's it.
You would-
Physical and a follow up.
You would have
That's
benefited from the
Physical.
from the way it worked before.
And follow up.
Yeah, that's it.
Yes. All right. Jesse
We'll
McDonald.
explain to you what he was doing with the physical and follow up.
I'm looking forward to hearing that off the air.
Going to the next part of our show, we give a free tumbler out to one of you guys who would like to win one. Please always let us know if you want to be on the list. Put a high five. Say I want to be on the tumbler wheel to get a free tumbler. We'd love to get it out to you. Name, phone number, email, please, so we can get in touch with you. It'd be great. And let's go to the next part of the show.
All right.
Good stuff, buddy. Exactly. You're on camera still, by the way.
Am I still on camera? When do I get kicked out? I'm supposed to get up and walk out.
No.
Yeah, it's a different place, exactly. Oh my goodness. Yes, that's
You're supposed to write us a theme song.
Tiana Rogers? Tiana, congratulations. You just won a free tumbler. Great people, by the way.
Do you already
Tiana.
have one?
I don't know the she
We actually had a question too from Kevin B. I
Oh,
don't know.
Do we have time?
yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Kevin's question. Yes.
1735. What time is that?
1735. All right, so Kevin, we're going to get this question.
Good evening. As a first responder, should I carry accidental injury insurance on top of regular medicine? Medical, not medicine.
So that's a good question. There are a lot of products out there that are accident specific that you can add on top of your employer-based health insurance. I'm assuming you have it from your employer. Whether or not the first name was, what was the person's name?
Kevin.
So Kevin, it would depend on how high your deductibles and out-of-pocket levels are on your employer plan. If it's a fairly low deductible, like 500 or 1,000, maybe you don't want to spend the extra money to offset that amount of a deductible and out-of-pocket. But if you have like a $5,000 deductible to walk into the emergency room, there are accident policies that are, let's say if it was just for yourself, maybe $30 or $40 a month would wipe out most of your deductible on any kind of accidental injury.
Great question.
So those are out there, and it just depends on how much out of pocket you have on your employer plan, whether you'd want to bother buying an additional accident plan on top.
Kevin, let's call Jesse. He's going to help you out. He's very knowledgeable, as you know.
Happy to talk to you, Kevin.
203-882-9805. I'm hoping that Thane's got this on the screen. First one and second one. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everybody, being a part of our show today. We hope we were able to educate you with some information on insurance. Again, we're going to get back you in here maybe in a couple months to talk more about this stuff.
In the summer, there'll be more information on what's maybe coming out next year.
Yeah, and that was what I was kind of leaning. There's things changing, and as things are changing, pros and cons, goods and bads, highs and lows, we need to know more about what's happening.
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody, being a part of our show this week. And next week, we're going to have Michael Cristoforo on the show, and we're going to be talking about crypto and so many things to do with it that you're going to love this show. Can't wait to see that.
I'm watching that one.
It's going to be a great show. Crypto next week, Tuesday. Don't miss it. Eric Vasquez in your far right. Jesse McDonald, Modern Insurance in the middle.